Okay, so Anand, this conference is all about the user experience for mobile.
Absolutely.
So tell us, what is Qualcomm working on to kind of to take the user experience to the next level? What's coming down the pipe?
So as we look at our investment themes as a company, we really talk about three things that we drive our investment around. One is redefinition of computing. Second one is driving the capacity of the network by a factor of 1000x. And the third one is what we call the digital success. We can talk about any one of those, but I'll start with the first one. Redefinition of computing. One of the things we've been doing quite a bit over the last few years is adding a lot of capabilities into our modem and the associated SoC to bring up the processing capability, DSP, graphics, as well as the CPU. To the point where effectively today, if you buy a Snapdragon 800 based system, you can get Ultra HD 4K pixel capability, 4 times what you can get in an HD TV, visual definition, which is enormous, right? Now, that's great, but you can also take pictures at that level, videos at that level, encode, compress, all at the 4K level. And then when you mirror that with sound, and you mirror that with digital 7.1 surround sound, effectively what it does, for example, and I'm just giving one example, it untethers the home theater experience. I call it the democratization of the home theater experience because effectively on a small tablet or a small screen, you can get exactly the same sound experience you would get in your house with 7 speakers, and all you're using is your normal Bose headset or your Philips headset or whatever.
Well, I waited in line a half an hour at CES to hear that demo.
Oh, did you go to that?
It was a very impressive demo. The sound quality is just breathtaking.
Right.
Amazing.
So that's an example.
Some MIPS at the end there, computing power.
It's not pure MIPS. It's MIPS utilized in an intelligent way because at the end of the day, if you deliver this great capability and battery life gets drained out, then no consumer is going to be happy because they're going to be watching these things on the fly, right? So it's really getting an experience to be delivered in a mobile environment which the consumer would care about. And I just talk about one vignette, right? Photography is another one that consumers care about deeply, deeply. And there's lots we can do there in terms of computational photography, and that's an area that we've been investing in. And all of that falls into the area of what we call redefining computing. The second pillar is, which is also experience related, is really to be able to give bandwidth to the consumers at the point that they need it. If you look at AT&T's forecast over the future, what they would claim is over the last 5 years, capacity of the networks has grown about 250 times, not 250%, 250 times. And we call the problem for the next decade the challenge to be able to increase the network capacity by a factor of 1000x. And that's the rate for which we would like to be able to ready from a capacity growth standpoint. So that has a lot of innovations into it that's built in. Certainly the balancing between Wi-Fi and cellular networks is one aspect of it. Increased spectrum bandwidth is one aspect of it. But it's also addressing the interference issues across the multiplicity of networks that we increasingly see on our phones and addressing the radio interference issues. It's also about addressing the band aggregation on the LTE networks where the modularization that used to happen in 3G hasn't taken place in LTE, and we take care of that. It's also about things like LTE broadcast, where instead of doing unicast, you can do broadcast and get much better bandwidth. It's also about things like H.265, which has about 40% better encryption capability than H.264. And in an environment where more and more of our video, mobile traffic is video related, right? Certainly having a technology like H.265 is huge, right? The last piece I would talk about in the area of experiences is what we call the digital sixth sense. Right? These phones, these smartphones and tablets that we carry around are getting extraordinarily instrumented. Right? And I'm a marketer right now, so if you look at it from a marketing standpoint, advertising used to be print-based, then it went to radio-based, then it went to TV-based, then internet got layered on, and as each new technology came on, the previous didn't go away. They stayed, albeit at a diminished level. Now, if you look at mobile, it certainly integrates across all of those, right? And with mobile, you have the unique possibility of bringing the consumer into the experience, into the point of purchase, if you will, and then enhancing that point of purchase. So we have a set of technology, for example, called Gimbal, which are really sensor-based networks, and geofence. You can bring the consumer into the shopping experience if they were thinking about something and had indicated that they like something that they were interested in purchasing. but you're walking past a shop where that item might be there. This could draw the person into the shop, and then at the shop, at the point of purchase, there's another set of technologies, augmented reality, which can effectively make the point of purchase experience a lot different than what it is today. Right? So there's just a lot that's possible.
So I'm thinking in exponential terms. Putting the device aside,
Yeah.
what is the bottleneck for taking this industry to the next level exponentially? What's holding things back in the mobile arena, putting the device aside? So, network or whatever, what's exponentially holding us back? I know it's kind of interesting because mobile's been going exponential, but is there anything else that's out there?
Well, I mean, growth obviously has been not shabby, right? So it's quite healthy and quite robust on an overall basis. I think the one thing that consumers might want to see more of is more bandwidth, right? And so that would be one area of investment and certainly innovation. And I talked about that a little bit from the 1000x standpoint. And that's not just things that Qualcomm does, it's also things that the entire industry does, right? And I would talk about things like wireless backhaul could become important in that context. So you actually can deploy capacity into the network very quickly and very efficiently. That's certainly an area of innovation that we'll do some of, but the industry will do a lot of. So that's one example. And then the area of digital sixth sense that I talked about, right? That's an area where there does need to be standards so that application developers can develop on top of those standards, and then you get some ubiquity. Because as long as each device is being implemented, sensor networks in its own way, it's going to make it's going to make the targeting of the platforms to be able to get the applications deployed in a manner that everybody benefits a bit harder.
So bandwidth, what's after LTE? Is there anything coming out after
So
LTE?
LTE has a lot of legs still, right? So we are on our third generation of LTE right now with the product that I alluded to before called the Snapdragon 800. Integrated with that is what we call LTE Advanced, which has carrier aggregation built into it. And the bandwidth that you get from just that one feature being added into it, with the network being supported in that same manner, is greater than 2x what you would get on the first generation that the industry had been shipping on LTE. Now that's a huge advance, and that's not the end. There's still a lot more that you can do on LTE. I talked about LTE broadcast, for example, right? Where LTE broadcast is if you're in an arena or a very congested area, right? It turns out that LTE broadcast relative to unicast can improve the capacity of the network dramatically and offer services that the vast majority can see in a significantly better way than if you just had unicast capability. LTE Direct or peer-to-peer LTE is another technology we're working on. And these are all things that are in the future. They fall under the umbrella of LTE, but there's still a lot of room for innovation on the LTE.
Great. So let's ask one more question here, and then if we have time, we'll go to the audience. But let's shift over to tablets.
Absolutely.
So looking at some reports from IDC and a few other reports indicating that tablets are slated to outsell laptops. So the question is, what's next coming down the pipeline? Is it just more of the same? Better screen, better battery life? Or are we going to see any new dimensions open up over the next 5 years on tablets?
You'll certainly see better screens. You'll certainly see better batteries. All of that will happen. And I suspect you'll also see a lot more variation in form factors emerging on tablets. Tablets are a very close cousin of a smartphone. And if you look at the emerging markets, I think the emerging markets in particular, tablets are probably going to be the predominant form of computing, not so much what we used to grow up with here, which is desktops and notebooks. I think it'll be tablets in many of those emerging markets. The form factor is a lot more convenient, the user interface is a lot more convenient, the price points are a lot more affordable relative to what you would consider.
Do they merge? Does the laptop go the way of the 8-track player? I mean, what happens to the laptop?
In some markets, that's not unimaginable. I think that'll happen in some markets. Just look at the growth rate of how long it took for tablets to take over in China and exceed the PC sales in China. It's been skyrocketing, so I think that'll happen. One particular innovation that I think we can expect to see more of is in the area of screens. I think you will see a lot happening in the area of screens. Today, if you use a tablet or a smartphone or any one of these mobile devices, and you go out into the sunlight, it's very hard to read the screen. That will get addressed in a not too distant future, either by us or by others, but that'll get addressed for sure. Right? Battery life is another area. I think there's a lot of innovation going on. I think that'll also get addressed. Then when you go beyond that, you have things like flexible screens and so on. Some of them might be in the arena of still very early, but I think you will see innovation in those areas. But the first thing I would expect to hit the marketplace is the ability to read your screen and read pretty much whatever you see on the screen, whether you're in broad daylight or you're indoors. And I think that would be that will change the way we use these devices as we carry them around.
Okay. So I think we have time for 1 or 2 questions. I don't know if for Anand here. So, going once. Okay, here.
Anand, you were at Intel. Michael Davies from Index Partners. You were at Intel before that, and you're now at Qualcomm.
Yes.
How has the shift changed your perspective?
I don't know that the shift has changed my perspective. I've always believed, certainly for the last 10 years that I was in my Intel tenure, I was closely associated with mobile and was the face of mobile there. And so I certainly believe that mobile is going to be a huge game changer from a way we live, work, and play. And so that's not really a belief change. I still see the same thing happening, and in fact that's what I spent the last 15 minutes talking about. So really not a change in perspective, it's just a change where I exercise that perspective from.
That was a great question. Anything else? Yes.
Hi, I'm Devendra from VentureGeek. There's been a lot of talk about LTE Advanced and what that means for the networks. Any idea just in terms of what you guys have been seeing in terms of timelines and what can we expect to be the first LTE Advanced features that Qualcomm devices support?
So carrier aggregation, for example, is one of the features that we've already incorporated into the chipset, the 800 chipset that I alluded to. Samsung's Galaxy S4 has the carrier aggregation features built into it. Then in the markets where the network operators are deploying the LTE Advanced capabilities, certainly you can experience it in Korea for sure. That won't be the only market, you'll see it in other markets, but the first feature that we see as part of that is the carrier aggregation features. It's quite significant in terms of bandwidth expansion that you can get on a device.
When will we see that in the market, people using it, turning it on?
So in some of the markets that we're seeing it now, right? Now meaning second half, right? As these devices roll out in commercial systems now.
Anything else? Great. Well, thank you so much for
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.